Okay, welcome to week 10 video 3, continuing the story of how we write classes in Python. So this particular video is about how we actually convert the objects of the classes we've written into strings. But I'd like to just recap briefly what we've covered so far. So we've had the initial empty class color, which gave us a new type, but because it's an empty actual body for the class, it doesn't have any functionality. It does let us create objects of a class color and plug in instance variables or attributes as per those 3 lines, and we can pass objects of type color around to functions. So it's kind of useful, but not very. We made it a lot more useful by declaring a dunder_init method, the initializer for a color, and with that we can then create objects with a much nicer syntax. So in this case, the color takes the color constructor, as we call it, takes the 3 red, green and blue color components ready to be plugged into the object when it's initialized. The next improvement we made was to make the display function, that was a global function, a method of this particular class. And we did that simply by indenting it so it's part of the body of the color class. And then we can display a color. So we got to that far, and so far so good, but it's a slightly clumsy way of displaying or having a way of printing an object. Why can't we, for example, just go print color? Well, it turns out we can go print color, but the output's not terribly informative. It tells us that it's a dunder main color object, which is the class, and whereabouts it is in memory as a 64-bit hexadecimal number, which is not terribly informative to the average user. How can we do better? Okay, you've seen already that there is a str function which can be used on various objects, such as an integer, to convert it to a string, and that gives you the 3-character string 102. You can take str of lists as well, so here's a str of a list 1020, and you get a string back, open square bracket 1, 0, comma, and so on. Now, how does str work? Well, it turns out that str actually makes use of a hidden method, one of these dundery things we've been trying to hide from you all this way through the course. Let's show you that they're there. So if I say x is the number 102 and do a dir of x, you see in there a thing dunder_str there, that method there. And that's the thing that we're going to start to make use of ourselves, because when you call a str on an object, it in turn calls the dunder_str method of the object. So that the str of the variable x is 102 and x.dunder_str dunder is also the string 102, because that's what str function does. It calls the str or dunder_str method. There is a dunder_str already available to us in class color. If I do a dir of my color, I discover exactly the same thing, that I have this dunder_str somewhere in there. There it is, and it's there already, but as we've just seen, it's not very useful. So what we're going to do next is write our own. So just to quickly look through the slides here, that explains the stuff on how str works, and also notes that when you print an object, you're actually just calling str in order to get the string representation. And it shows you the default dunder_str hidden in there that I've just shown you, and what I want to do now is write my own. This is very easy. We take our display method and we change it to a str, and instead of printing a string, we return. Hopefully you're familiar with the difference between printing and returning at this point. If not, about time you did get there. So we return the string representation. I can't call its display method because it doesn't have one anymore, but I can print the color. Let's see what happens. Print color. I get exactly the same output as before. But now it's more useful because I can also get the color representation. I can, for example, print my color equals, and concatenate onto that the string representation of the color by being quite explicit about how I wish to construct the output. There it is, my color equals that. So that's this example here. And I've just gone through all of that. I call that particular program color 3. Okay, that's what I've called it here too. How convenient. But wait, there's more. So this is getting into a little bit of subtle stuff, but I'd like you to be aware of a difference because it comes in useful in some of the assignments. There's another way of converting an object to a string. As I say, this is just a little bit confusing. If I do a dir of my colour, it's got this dunder_str method, which we've just replaced with our own. It's also got a dunder_repr method. Now, it turns out, although we haven't used it up till now, that everything has a repr method as well as a str method. That is a dunder_repr. And there's also a global function called repr, which can be used to call the dunder_repr. Making sense? Very similar to str. So I can go, what's the repr of 102? And I get, it's the string 102. Now there's a distinction between these two, which is a little bit subtle, and that slide over there tries to show you that. And I'm going to just try to explain it by means of a few examples. If I print the str of 102, it prints just 102. It's not in quotes. And if I were to then go x equals 102, I would get, that is just copying that in and putting it on the right-hand side, I get, obviously, an integer. Don't believe me? Type of x. It's an int. If I go print the repr of the string 102, it comes out as quote 102 quote, and if I then go y is equal to y is equal to that string, just copying that in and using it on the right hand side, then of course y is a string. So the difference between repr and str is that the str is the format that you wish to display to the user when you print something. So that if I print the string 102 like that, I call the str method on it, I just get 102, which is exactly the same output as if this were the integer 102. You'll have to look through the slide, work through it again. This is pretty subtle. Probably need to slow down the video or stop it and think a bit about this. Practice with it a bit. So the key thing I want to get across is that str and repr are very similar, but repr gives you a representation that you can put on the right-hand side of an assignment statement. So that if I wanted to create a colour, C is I can do a colour 10, 20, 30, that works, but if I go print C at present, and I go C is equal to that, that's not syntactically valid. I can't do that. Syntax error. Okay, so I'm going to write a repr method as well. And my repr method is going to be def dunder_repr of self, oops, I'll get it right yet, self. Return the representation of self. And I'm going to have this method return the syntax I can use to construct a new one. So I'm going to return the string colour with 3 parameters, formatted self.red, self.green, self.blue. Right. Now, with that changed version, I run that changed version, I can now have, if I go print the representation of my colour, it comes out like that, and if I were to say C is equal to that, oh, I've got an error in it though, that's meant to be a comma, not a full stop. Sorry, fix my error, run it again. If I now go C is, print the representation of my colour, it prints that, which is valid on the right-hand side of an assignment statement. Right, a little bit subtle. There's two ways of representing or converting objects to strings. One is the str, which is designed for printing. The other is the repr, which should be usable as a representation, as a piece of code, if you like. So it turns out also that if you write a repr and not a str, then the repr gets used for the str. So if I take this out, I've no longer defined my str. If I run that and then print my colour, it turns out to use the repr. So often it's actually easier to write repr first because you get 2 bangs for your bucks. You get 2 separate methods, the str and the repr. And that's all I wanted to say in this video. I hope that wasn't too confusing. It's all new stuff. Take it slowly, practice a little bit, and go back to the point class that you hopefully wrote at the end of the second video, and add a repr to it and make sure that it works the way you expect. Thanks for watching. Bye.